What's up, you guys?
You're live.
What's up, you guys? It's Fred McGill. We are here in the Summerhill neighborhood of Atlanta. Check us out. I want to give you context as to where we're at specifically. And here we are right in this little region right here. So this is about 4 or 5 blocks away from Georgia Avenue, which is a really super cool development right by the old Turner Field. So it's a really hot area. If we walk down the street, which we might do in a minute, there's probably 17 or 18 flips just on this one road across about 3 blocks. So we're going to talk about what we're doing in this flip. SimpleShowing is going to sell this house. We've got the project manager right here. This is Drew. Say hello, Drew.
Hello.
This is the guy that did all the hard work, and we thought that it would be valuable to show you. So this is how it really looks and works. When you're doing a flip, it's kind of trashy and looks a little bit rough for about 90% of the time. So we're going to walk around really quick, show you what we did, and then talk about the tips and tricks on flipping a house. So Drew, what did you guys do in this house real quick? Give us the 3-minute rundown.
So we demoed the cabinets, removed all the flooring. We actually had settlement issues on the back of the house, so we did helical piers, jacked the house up, and paint new cabinets, trim, and new carpet, and some tile and bathrooms. But
Total budget,
that's the gist of,
$45,000 to $50,000 total.
Yep.
So in a minute, we're going to talk about typical budgets on a flip, as well as what you can expect from a resale here in the Atlanta area and what a typical house profit might look like. So real quick, we're going to show this house. I'm going to take you through here, just cruise here real fast. You can't tell, but the floors have been redone. These are what we call engineered wood floors. So they're not totally real all the way through, but the top surface is real. We're going to carpet this bedroom because it's cheaper to carpet it versus doing hardwood.
1 second.
All right, we're gonna do, you can see there's people working on the deck. They're putting in a new deck. And then back here, this is a 3-bed, 2-bath house. And then back here is an add-on bathroom. You can kind of tell how the flooring has been redone, as well as the towel shower here. All right, so we won't spend too much time because I don't want Rayanne to get dirty. It's a little bit dusty in here. Let's talk about the fun part, how you actually get to this level in the flip. Come on. Okay. Cruise through here, you can see all the work we're doing.
Say hello.
Hello.
Okay. So as I was telling you guys before, my name is Fred McGill. I myself have done about, what?
Louder.
So I've done about a dozen or so flips on my own. Drew's done like 100. This is not my flip, this is Drew's, but we did help them acquire the property. But today we're gonna talk about the difference between, on one side of the spectrum, you've got Joanna Gaines on the fixer-upper. Everything's pretty, everything goes well, you make a bunch of money. And then over here on the other end, you got Money Pit. Old Tom Hanks movie where you work on it for about 3 years and you never make any money, you just spend a lot of money. So we want you to be on this side and to have fun and make a bunch of money and hopefully enjoy it along the way. So these are the sort of tips and tricks to make sure you find the right house, know what to pay for on the house, know the basics. I've got about 5 or 6 tips on things to avoid and things that are best practices. And then also how to calculate what you're going to sell it for. So how do you know a good ARV or after repair value, and how do you know you're too high, how do you know you're too low? All right, so first of all, I'm going to talk about just the generic price ranges, okay? So this applies really closely to Atlanta, maybe not so much if you're in like Cleveland or maybe in California, but specific to Atlanta, most of the time you're looking for properties around 100 to 250. That's not to say that you can't get a flip and acquire it for $325, but it's going to be tougher. It's going to be more complicated most likely. And at the same time, if you're buying a $50K house, not probably going to be a ton of profit in it. So those are good sort of benchmarks to use. Thresholds 100 to 250K. That's an ideal range to think about. All right, so when you're doing these flips, the first thing you want to look at, and by the way, don't try a $400,000 house in your first flip. Terrible idea. Keep it super simple. Keep the budget under maybe $30,000 ideally, okay? All right, so the first thing I think about when I'm acquiring the property, aside from the neighborhood, what I'll talk about in a second, it's just the structure of the home, right? So you got crawl space, slab, basement, okay? So if you have everything intact, if you got plumbing intact and you're not moving a bunch of plumbing, you're not moving a bunch of electric, get a slab. That's going to be the easiest thing. You're not changing a bunch of stuff. However, if you don't have 2 bathrooms, let's say you only got 1, you pretty much got to get a crawl space or a basement, because you got to move plumbing, you got to move electrical. You can't really do that with a slab very easily. Otherwise, you're cutting into the slab. That's really hard and expensive. Even on this house, they had to go underneath the slab. So there's always things about the structure of the home you got to think about. So that's probably the most important thing, is actually picking the right design of the home, right? All right, so things to avoid, just super generic basic houses, right? First of all, pick a flat lot. This is a great lot. It's super flat. It's not on a hill. It's not in a hole. Okay, so look for a flat lot. Also, look for a good street. This street is a good street because there's a lot of activity. But you don't want to be on a street that's got, for example, Drew, who was in the video a second ago, he recently got a house that has a mechanic next door. And so the dude's like working on the driveway, like on about 17 cars. Not ideal, okay? So you don't, you want the neighbors and the stuff around there. All that being said, we have a pink house directly across the street, which is not the best thing. I don't know if you can see that pink house. Show them the pink house.
You guys see the pink house over here? Very bright pink.
All right, so don't buy with a pink house like we did. Also, don't buy on a super busy street. So we're selling a house right now that was a flip that is literally sitting on I-20. It's not good. They probably got it for a cheap price, but you ideally don't want a super busy road, okay? You also don't want a super bad school district unless there's rapid appreciation and that school district is going to improve in the next 2 or 3 years, okay? So look at the schools. Don't get a super crappy school district. Ironically, the school district we're in right here is not that great. The other thing to think about is what school zone? I don't even know the elementary, but it's not good. But sometimes you can't avoid that if it's rapidly appreciating. For example, we walk down this road. I mean, I'm not kidding. There's every 4th house there's a flip going on, so that's good, and the area is improving. The other thing that's sort of easy to check that you don't really even need an agent for is look up the days on market. So you don't want to buy a flip in an area that has, for example, really high days on market. So that means is if the homes are selling on average in 45 days or 2 months, that's not good. You want to look and see that the homes have been selling for 1 day, 3 days, 7 days, really quick, fast turnover. And that way when you put your house on the market, it's going to sell quickly as well. So always pay attention to days on market.
We have Hannah and Troy joining us.
Yes. Hey, Hannah and Troy. All right, so the other thing you got to think about, so you've identified a good lot, right? You've got an area that's got low days on market, that's rapidly appreciating, maybe it's in a good school district. Now you got to figure out how am I going to buy this house. So you have 2 kind of flips. You got the live-in flip, which means you're going to buy it as a primary residence, and then you got the investor flip, which is more prevalent, of course. So a lot of people are doing the live-in flips. That means you're going to get a primary loan, a conventional loan, maybe put 5 down, 10% down, something like that. And you can just get a normal interest rate. In that situation, ideally, you're going to live it in at least 1 year, because then you avoid capital gains. Well, you actually pay 15% capital gains, but if you live in it 2 years, you pay no capital gains. That's sort of a long-term flip strategy where you're going to live in it. That's a little different than this. The common is a flip that typically is going to last about 6 months. So that's what we're looking at today is a 6 month. And now I'm going to calculate how you actually do that. But really quick, so in terms of if you're not doing a live-in flip, you're going to either get the money, you're going to have a cash offer. And if you're doing cash flips, maybe you've done this before and you've got a couple $100,000 in the bank. That is how most people do it. If you don't have a few $100,000 sitting around, most people don't, then you typically will get a hard money lender or bridge loan. And a hard money lender is just someone that gives you an interest-only note. And so you're not paying anything down to the principal, and they're typically only lasting about 1 year. So you need to do the flip within 1 year. Bridge loan is very similar. Just Google that later. Now I'm going to talk about the ARV on this exact house and how to calculate it. All right, so zoom in here. So an ARV is basically just the after rehab value. And so you're looking at houses and you're like, hey, look, everything in this area is selling for $350. That's just anecdotally, you may think, okay, I could sell this thing for $350. It's best to actually do deeper research, ideally with an agent, and find out the actual comps and what they're selling for that specific area. And then you're going to arrive at an ARV. So for example, our ARV is 320 on this. And basically what that means is we're gonna sell this house for $320,000, okay? This is what we call the 70% rule. This is, a lot of investors use this. It's not a hard and fast rule. You can actually replace 70% with 75 or 80, depending on what your profit margin is, but this is the most common rule. So you basically take $320,000, that's what we're selling it for, multiply it down to 70%, that equals $238,000, and then you back out the rehab costs. So our rehab cost is $45,000. That's gonna deliver this number right here, which is essentially the maximum allowable purchase price. So what that's saying is, in order to achieve our desired margin of roughly around 30%, we don't need to buy this for any more than $193,000. Unfortunately, we paid $200 for this, so we're sort of like already, you know, $7,000 in the hole theoretically. But you can also think about if this is the, you know, this right here is the total cost. Here's the ARV. You can think about how much profit, you know, we're going to make on this one. So we bought it for 200. We put in 45, right? So we're all in for 245 and selling it for 320. Now this doesn't, of course, take into account, for example, like transfer fees and commissions. So a big thing about selling houses, which is why you might be wondering, like, why is SimpleShowing doing this now video? Well, if you're buying a house and selling it too, and you're using an agent, which most people will, you got to then back out 6%. So you pay theoretically 3% when you buy, and then another 3% when you sell. If you use SimpleShowing, we refund 1.5% when you buy, and then we also have a cheaper fee when we sell. So in thinking about your profit, you're definitely crazy if you use an agent to buy it and pay them 3%, and then also use an agent to sell for 3%. You're going to make a lot less in terms of the profit. So be thinking about that when you're, you know, that's a huge part of profit that's just going out the window to an agent.
We have some questions about what you just talked about.
Sure.
So Brett Ross asked, typically do people use a hard money lender for the entire deal, or do they combine with some of their own money?
Typically the second. Usually the individual's putting up a little bit of money, maybe 40K, 50K, whatever. That's of course you're paying interest-only loan. If you're doing a 200K note, I mean, it's gonna be a pretty big payment. You can actually run it with just like the Zillow calculator and figure out what the payment's gonna be, but you're making payments every month on that note. So yeah, I would probably put up a little bit of cash on your own, but then of course you have to use the cash to fund the reno too. So another thing people do that I forgot to talk about is if you're doing a live-in flip, which is probably best if you've never done a flip, that means you're going to get a primary mortgage. You can actually get a renovation loan. There's one called a 203K, and I've actually used these before. It's an FHA note, and so you only have to put down 3.5%, and then the FHA lender provides the entirety of the renovation. So, for example, the rehab's going to be 40 grand. You don't have to come up with that 40 grand. The lender gives you that 40 grand, and then it's baked into the note. So let's say that you're putting up $200,000 to buy the house. It's going to be a 40K reno. The whole loan is going to be $240,000 minus your 3.5% that you're putting down. So there's so many ways you can do it. Don't think about it like you got to put 20% down. That's definitely not the case.
And then one more question from Hannah. We have how do you budget for flips? Do you budget for renos in the first 12 months or the entire reno for the entire house?
The entire house, and it also depends on the biggest part of the flip that we won't have a ton of time to spend on today, but is the contractors and picking good subcontractors. And you need to, whenever you're acquiring the property, before you even make an offer, you need to figure out the exact price of electrical, of plumbing, of tiling, of floor, everything. Get all your quotes lined up before you even make an offer, and get the exact cost of the full flip plus any interest you're paying to the lender if you're not doing a cash note. So anyway, so that's that. The one other thing I want to spend time on really quick is where to flip in Atlanta. So people all the time are asking, like, what's a good area? Oh, where's my little map?
I think it's inside.
Come on.
I'll be right back.
Okay, boom, there you are. All right, so check this out. Is there good lighting here?
Yes.
All right, so there's about 4 or 5 areas that I recommend. If you're in town, so if you're ITP, right? There's a few areas that I like, and that would be so this is the sort of central Beltline area. So the 2 neighborhoods that are really good here are Reynoldstown, which is like right here, and then Edgewood, which is right beside it. So most people know Inman Park, that's a little further up. Inman Park is way too expensive to do a flip, don't try it there. So Reynoldstown and Edgewood's really good. And then as you come down the south side of the belt line, where we're at today, which is Summerhill and Peoplestown is really good right here. And then as you move your way west, so you can see a common theme here I'm talking about, which is the belt line. Another really good area right now is West End right here and Adair Park. So if you can just think about this Beltline area, Reynoldstown, Edgewood, and then West End and Adair Park, all right here, sort of along the I-20 corridor. This is all really good area because the acquisition price is so low, and it's still continuing to gentrify, and you can get prices, command a pretty good resale price if you rehab it correctly. And then if you're looking sort of outside the perimeter, before you get outside the perimeter, if you're staying inside the perimeter, I would recommend Chamblee, which is like right up here. So it's adjacent to Brookhaven, which of course is very established. Brookhaven itself is a little too expensive to do a flip, but Chamblee would be really good to do to concentrate a flip on. And then if you're going outside the perimeter, the area I like best is Smyrna. So you can still get the acquisition price down under 200 and resale values in the high threes. So there's still plenty of margin. So those are the core areas I concentrate on: South Beltline, I-20 corridor, Chamblee on the north side, and then Smyrna up here. All right, so I think that's it. Let's take some Q&As. Any other questions we got?
Let's see. Where can I find good contractors for a flip?
Oh, geez. That's like the hardest part of flipping a house, is finding a good contractor, because you might find one and then all of a sudden the next day they like disappear to Guatemala. So once you get one, like be their BFFs and like don't let them go. I would use, if you're just doing a small task like plumbing or electric, that's not a big deal, like I'm just upgrading the countertops and changing the faucets. Honestly, you just go to something like Angie's List or Thumbtack. Those are just apps that are like quick and easy, and you can get multiple estimates all at once. There's not really a great way to, a lot of the really, really good flippers are high velocity flippers, wholesalers. They have crews that are just doing this like all the time, right? If you email me offline, fred@simpleshowing.com, I do have some good contractors, roofers, literally in every trade or every sub that I might be able to recommend, depending on the area you're in. They're not going to go up to to Canton, but in-town people I can help you with. But I would use those apps, Angie's List and Thumbtack, for now, as you're getting started.
Okay. Are condos a good idea to flip?
No. Generally not a good idea to flip, only because the appreciation on condos, I will say that condos are easier to flip, so there's some advantages in terms of them being easier. The problem is, if you, for example, have a bunch of condos that are 200 and you get it for 190, then you're going to go try and resell it for 270. It's not going to appraise, because all those condos in that area are all selling for 200, and you just over improve that condo to get it to a higher price point. It's typically not going to appraise. Whereas when you have a house, there's a lot more headroom for appreciation, and the appraisal will typically always come in.
Awesome. See.
Today?
I think that's about it, yeah.
Awesome, thank you guys. Check us out next time. We'll do a recap on this house when it gets done in about 2 weeks. We're 90% there, but this one's coming on the market in Summerhill for about $340K in 2 weeks.
What's the address?
729 Grant Terrace. 729 Grant Terrace. Thanks, you guys. Bye-bye.